realization that the well-being of an organization has an impact on the culture of the organization.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So it's embedded in the mindset.
Right.
It's embedded in the way that we work. It's embedded in the way the interactions that we have as teams, as colleagues, as peers. As, there is a lot of active role modeling from the leadership as well.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Find Your Calm. I'm Yunshi Wilson, your host and founder of Find Your Calm. I'm really thrilled to talk about this topic today with our special guest because it is what initiated my journey into wellness. So we're going to really dive into some topics that maybe you haven't thought about as an individual working for an organization, or perhaps even a leader leading various people within an organization. And today I have with me Radha Bharj, who is the co-founder actually of Rythmik. And we're going to be discussing all things related to personal well-being and how it impacts you and your organization. So thank you for joining me today.
No, well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here actually and to talk about this topic with you.
Absolutely. So let's start with your background. How did you get into what you're doing today? How did that all start?
Okay, so it's been quite a journey, Yunchi. So I studied engineering at university. So my background is digital. Mm-hmm. And just by, obviously through the background and my interest at the time, I joined a large organization working in digital marketing. Okay. As you could probably tell from the accent, I'm from the UK. Mm-hmm. I'm born and brought up in London, and I spent most of my career working in London. Okay. So started the journey in digital marketing, absolutely loved it. I was very passionate about one particular area in digital marketing, which was usability and customer experience and the impact that we could make by making changes to, interfaces. Yes. To improve the customer experience that was going on our various platforms. I did that for a while, and by chance, I would say, I landed a role in HR. Okay. It was to deploy one of their global HR systems in the new organization. And actually, I realized very quickly within that role that the impact that within HR that you can have on an individual is huge. Right. So the usability angle that I was loving and I was very fond of obviously doing in digital marketing was actually far more greater, I felt, on a personal fulfillment level, that I was able to make changes to people's lives in the sort of HR domain. And came to sort of the birth of this concept around employee experience that I was very fortunate to be part of, and defining what that looks like in a very large organization, global organization. So that's kind of where the sort of employee experience, really started for me. Okay. I then went on to do some consultancy work in the area. I joined an organization, a very large organization, global organization, also as a consultant. Mm-hmm. And I did some work there, different levels of maturity from an employee experience perspective as well. Mm-hmm. So in a nutshell, Yunchi, my career has been in very large global organizations, right. Corporate organizations, in an area that I think is, I was very passionate about and still am very passionate about. Right. Then life does its thing. Yep. And, I think we've both spoken about this before. Yep. Life does its thing. And I landed in Dubai. And that was something through my family. And I was at an interesting point in my career at that time where I was thinking, actually, I could, obviously go and join another organization or do something different. And I actually decided then to start my own consultancy. So that's where the birth of Rythmik has come from. Rythmik is a global consultancy. Mm-hmm. I'm the co-founder of it. And we basically specialize in the future of work and employee experience. And what that basically does is create impact around three areas that we see, which is well-being, innovation, and performance. So that's a little bit of background as to the journey so far and sort of why I'm sitting here with you today in Dubai.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's talk a bit about that, because employee experience and the future of work, that word I feel like has really bubbled up to the top over the last 3 years post you know what. And so given that your years of experience in this field, how do you feel that that's changed post that event and some things that you're immediately seeing moving into 2024?
So I think, the pandemic did change a lot for everyone, let's say, right? As in it's been a huge milestone that I think it's accelerated a lot of things also in the workplace. And when we talk about certain initiatives, let's take well-being, for example, as it's very close to our hearts over here today, is well-being was a thing. But actually the spotlight really came onto it because during that time, things like our mental well-being, our social well-being, our financial well-being, all the different dimensions of well-being were coming into play at that point. Right. So actually it really, I think, accelerated things and the conversations that we were having personally, but also professionally around this whole topic. So I do think there's been a big focus on these areas around that because of the pandemic, and it's just accelerated the thinking and the thought process and the implementation of some of these things in organizations too.
Absolutely. And we can let's move right into that implementation, right? Because the reality is we can't go back. And I think there are a lot of leaders who are feeling like, okay, pandemic's over, we come back into the office, everything should go back to the status quo. And you have a lot of workers that are like, no. Right? They're taking a stand. How can organizations better implement well-being in a way that is conducive to productivity and the work environment as a whole?
Well, I think there's, I would say, firstly, a stage around realization. So slowing down and reflecting, I'd say. I think you need to slow down and have a look at what's happened over the last few years. Right. The world of work has changed. Us as individuals have changed. What we want from life has changed. The work-life balance piece is obviously very important now as well. So there's a piece around reflection, looking back at what's happened. Then it's about, your own personal journey and where you've been and where you're going really as well. And around the kind of leader you want to be in that space too, in the world of work for tomorrow. Do you want to be a role model? You want to be authentic? You want to show empathy in the way that you're working also. And then it's about forecasting and working with your employees and your teams and your organization to define what does that well-being, what does that look like in your organization for the future of work. Because by doing it in silos, doing it on your own, you're not going to be able to bring people along. It's easier when and it's the right thing to do, right? Is to bring together on a movement to do that. And realizing that the impact of this has a cultural impact on your organization too, right? It's how we're turning up, how we're feeling, how we're working, how we're doing things together is going to impact our productivity. It's going to impact our ability to innovate because we're collaborating better. Right. We are breaking silos. We are building deeper relationships. We're building trust. Yeah. The element of fear is gone. So what are we being able to do in that environment? What are we able to do in that space is be able to innovate better. Absolutely. And therefore that has an impact. Innovation has an impact on growth and productivity. So it's kind of part of the, part of it.
Absolutely. I find it interesting because if we go back to thinking about us growing up in school, we had a counselor, right? There was always someone there that you could talk to about things that you were going through. And then we get into the workplace and that person or that individual no longer exists. Even in college, you had someone you could go and talk to about what you were going through and the emotions. And then it's like you get into this environment and it's like, well, you're done growing. You're here. You've made it. Deal with your career. And I think that in our world today, especially where you've got these intergenerational people coming in and different hierarchies and things of that nature, I wonder if organizations would benefit from having some type of counselor, an individual, to help navigate this very complicated area of well-being. Because as you just said, you have leaders who have to shepherd this entire objective for all of these people, but who's doing it for the leaders?
Yeah, and it's an interesting one. And I think you see it's various organizations are doing different things, and I think we define sort of like a well-being corporate framework that we talk to, right? So the first stage is that your sort of starter. Your organizations are realizing well-being is something that is important, and it's done ad hoc. Yeah, so they're doing well-being on an ad hoc basis,
right? So check the box right now.
or it's authentic, right? It's coming from there is a need for it, and I know that there is a need for it, and I'm finding out I'm beginning. I'm at that sort of initial stage of it.
Yeah.
And interventions in that sort kind of are, sporadic. So it's things like, we are celebrating a milestone of a project. So we're going to have a celebration in the organization for the team to celebrate that. It's like, bringing fruit in on a certain day. So these are all, are sort of initiatives that people are doing. So that's kind of the sort of starter stage that we look at the beginner.
Yeah.
Then you've got the second stage, which is a bit more intermediate. And sort of how we define that is there is often a plan. There is often resources, the budgets assigned to a program of some sort around well-being, right?
Yes.
So we are doing these, and there are a number of initiatives that we're doing, and they focus on the various dimensions of well-being as well, right? Your social, financial, well-being. And so some examples of that are things like, the employee assistance programs, which are the sort of mental well-being stage part, and those conversations and being able to have those conversations with people. So there are different interventions, and I think the last one that we describe is sort of the mastery, right, of well-being. It's kind of the advanced stage of it, and we talk about that in terms of is realization that the well-being of an organization has an impact on the culture of the organization.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So it's embedded in the mindset.
Right.
It's embedded in the way that we work. It's embedded in the way the interactions that we have as teams, as colleagues, as peers.
Absolutely.
There is a lot of active role modeling from a leadership as well. There's endorsement.
Absolutely.
So it's about the three different stages of this well-being, and actually realization that there is ability to sort of move based on where you want to be as an organization also.
Absolutely.
And the kind of leader that you want to be too.
I mean, I think what you said is so crucial, because buy-in, in order for an organization to change, the leader has to believe in it. And typically, the leader has to have had an individual transformational change to believe in something, right? In order for them to want to say, yes, everyone needs to experience this, because then we will all do X, Y, Z, because then they won't even allocate budget, right? Because your stage 2 is like, we're talking about them saying, yes, this is valuable enough for us to actually set aside a separate budget from everything else we have going on. So how do you get organizations to get to stage 2?
So there's a number of obviously interventions that you can do, right? So I think there's awareness, I'd probably call it, rather than, so a lot of this is around taking the time and the space to understand that these different levels exist.
Right.
This is what it looks like. There is measurement around it. It can be measured, right? And these are the ways that you could do that in your organization. So I think there's a big piece around awareness.
Yes.
Building that, building in, what do metrics look like? What does measurement look like, right? Because that's important.
Like, what are your KPIs?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, the impact on culture that this has, right? So as I sort of mentioned earlier, it has a very big impact in the way that we work, in the way that we do our roles, how we turn up for work. But also, we have to realize there's the impact on the talent attraction and talent retention piece as well, because all our employees are ambassadors of ours. They are working internally, but they're also going externally. They're talking about the brand. They're talking about how they work. They're having conversations with their friends. Right. So realizing that there is obviously a link there in terms of the longevity also, and what you're sort of putting out there as an organization. So there's a lot of different types of interventions that you can do, but I would say that the awareness piece is the first thing. Is just to be aware, and reflect on what you want to do and what you are trying to drive and what you are trying to achieve.
Right.
And then working with your employees to then create that environment that you are trying to get out
create.
There. Yeah.
So would you define that? Because I think there are various definitions for company culture, and some that are like really, that I think miss the mark all the way around, because some people are like, oh, we've got ping pong tables and slides. Company culture. How would you define company culture?
I think company culture in terms of well-being, there's lots of different ways that you can define it. Yeah. I would say it's around where employees are feeling comfortable, they feel they're healthy,
yes,
and they're happy. That's
simple.
That's
easy.
it. I think if that's how I would define it. I think how you measure it it's different. So yes. I think there's areas that you can measure. We typically look at, there's about 6 areas that we look at, but I can give you a few examples.
Yeah.
Is collaboration and communication, the sense of belonging, the speak up culture. so I can, speak up, and the innovation that is coming also. So these are just some examples that we work with organizations around measurement of what that could look like.
I think that's so important, because when I've spoken to organizations before we created Find Your Calm and just other individuals, the biggest reason why I saw organizations not investing in well-being was because they couldn't measure it. What's my ROI? That's the first thing. And this was pre-pandemic, but post-pandemic, it's very easy to be reflective. Like, remember when everyone wasn't in office, right? Remember what that looked like? It's an easy conversation to have. But now we have people going into the mindset of, what's the likelihood of that ever happening again? Right?
Well,
so what are some ways that we can approach companies, or companies should be thinking about this from a strategic standpoint, as a growth strategy, not a cost center?
So I think I would bring it back down to sort of the culture that it creates, right? Mm-hmm. So when we create a culture of well-being, when we create a culture where we're able to feel comfortable and we're breaking down barriers and we're working better, we're collaborating better, we are driving an innovation. We're driving innovation in our organizations. Yeah. So we are experimenting more, right? Yeah. We are learning fast, failing fast. We are piloting more. So these are the things that we can start thinking about in terms of, that value that's going to bring to us and our organizations. And obviously there is a measurement piece as well, which is of course is important as well, right? In terms of understanding, because you don't do an intervention and then kind of leave it and hope for the best, right? As in, you would want to know that ultimately, because you're passionate and you care about the culture that you're creating in the organization too, right? Right. So this is why these things are also important, and that measurement angle is important.
Absolutely. So I wonder that how can if you're not a leader, but you would like to, you're a part of an organization and you see gaps, how can you become an advocate that helps leadership begin to take a look at this, to say, we need to implement something regarding wellness in order for us to better retain employees, to, all of these check. How can someone be internally, who is not in a leadership position, be an advocate?
I think this is something that's very important, actually. I think when we talk about well-being in organizations, we automatically go to the leadership. We automatically think about all the different things and considerations. But remember, any change requires all levels of an organization. Right. And I think a lot of it will come down to the individual's, passion for it. And so, talk to line managers, talk to, your buddies, your peers, your mentors, your coaches, whatever, and it depends on the organization as well, and the kind of, feedback mechanism that they have for these sort of things as well, right? Some organizations have community managers, yes, which would be a great place to go and talk about these things and get your ideas out there, right? And get it on be vocal about it, right? That this is an important piece and I believe in it and I think it has an impact on that. Because ultimately what drives that is the change at all the levels, right? It all needs to come together. It needs to be a movement. Yes. And that's what ultimately is going to make it happen. So yes, we often, like I said, we often talk about the leadership level, but actually it's on all levels. And really being part of a group, a program, a squad, whatever you want to call it, that comes together with leadership or, without or by empowered by them or however you want, and to define that together. Absolutely. And don't do that sort of by yourself or, collaborate so that it's relevant to everyone and it's reflective of the culture you're trying to create.
Wonderful. So can you give some examples? Because there's all types of various wellness programs throughout companies. Some examples that you've seen work really well for different companies, large, small, that, actual wellness initiatives that have moved the needle. Because I think a lot of times in conversations I know that I've had, they don't really know where to start. It's like, we gave them a gift box or we gave them a gym membership. And it feels like that within itself is embodying all aspects of a wellness program. So can you provide some examples of what you've seen that's worked well?
I've seen things in like interventions. So, when I talk about the starter, advanced, and I've seen sort of across the board in organizations that kind of happening. And actually they complement one another. So you can do, like you said, the gym membership, for example, the free fruit. the celebration of an achievement, right? These are like, physical things, right? But actually, if you look at the wellness and well-being in organizations where it's embedded in the culture, it's how you do your meetings. Right?
Yeah.
It's how you do presentations. It's how you collaborate.
Yeah.
So it's kind of at the sort of examples are at all levels of an organization, right?
Yes.
It's not just about, okay, if you have a football table, you've done it,
You're good.
everyone's happy. It's all good. It's not. It's kind of, it's a movement. It's a journey.
Yes.
It's how I would describe it. And that's how I've seen it. That's how I've seen it work really well. And I've been fortunate enough to be in part of that, like in journeys, to have the realization and, to then see things materialize through that. So I think it is, I think it would be, I would probably stare away from sort of one
exactly.
example of it, but actually it's a movement and it's about them all coming together and that culture that it's creating ultimately.
Absolutely. So how do you feel that, or let me rephrase, companies today that moving forward, we've got AI that's very much a huge part of entrepreneurs have adapted it very quick. Organizations are realizing that they don't have a choice. You've got Gen Z now becoming leaders in the workplace, and very soon the next generation coming into the workforce. There are a lot of changes that are happening on a global landscape. How important is it for organizations today to adapt wellness as a part of ensuring that they can be a part of what the future of work looks like?
The future of work, as you've pointed out, is, there's disruptors. And being prepared for those disruptors is really important. And I think well-being does play a very important role because it's the foundation of, who you are as an individual and who you are as a collective in an organization. Right. It's important to tune into that also, and also make sure that's there and remembered. Because the future of work, there are going to be things that we're going to have to adapt to very quickly. You mentioned AI is just one of those.
Yeah.
And also, the pandemic, as we saw, it just came. None of us were expecting it.
Right.
So there is an element of that. And I think if you have a strong foundation, if you have a strong well-being culture in your organization, I think it prepares you for the future of work. And it also prepares you to navigate some of those disruptors because you're working differently as a team, right?
Exactly.
You are coming together through meaningful interactions that are based on trust and depth and relationships. And, that's really important, I think. And I think if you've got that environment and it's already there and it's created, I think it's a fantastic way to prepare yourself for, the things that are going to come our way in the future.
Wonderful. So how does someone like you, who runs a corporation, you have kids, you are, you are got all kinds of things that you're doing. How does someone like you find your calm?
I think that's a great question. I think a lot of what I do is based around I talk about it a lot, right? It's stopping, pausing and reflecting and just sort of being in the present.
Yes.
I think being in the present is really important for me. I think a lot of my calm is spending time with my family and my children. I think children have a great way of taking you out of a situation, a frame of mind, whatever you want to call it, and transporting you into somewhere very beautiful. And spending that time with my kids is very, very important for me also. So from a well-being perspective. I think they're the two things, and just, taking the time to slow down, calm down, be present.
Yes.
Is very important also.
I love that because you don't really hear people say, "Oh, my kids are my calm." Like there's, I love what you said because kids remind us to play. They're very innocent. They're in their world. So it's like when it's time to play, nothing else matters.
Absolutely.
So I really do love that. So Let our followers know where to find you, how they can connect with you and work with you.
Sure. So Radha Bharj, I am, like I said, I'm the co-founder of Rythmik. We're a global consultancy, and I'm on LinkedIn. You can find us on find me on our website. Contact us through there. So yeah, that's how you can get hold of us.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
This was great. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely, love to.
And thank you again to our sponsor, Decompression Realm. You can check out the lovely products that we have here on the table, eye massager, our candles. Be sure to use the code CALM10. And also thank you to our partner, our community partner, the Global Wellness Alliance. Until next time.